Hello, my name is Mariana Maystein. Nice to meet you. The theory of general relativity, the most important tool in cosmology, was deduced from the elevator thought experiment. However, this reasoning was at an extremely low level, so Einstein reached the wrong conclusion. Other physicists have even lower reasoning abilities, so no one has noticed this mistake yet. I will explain this in an easy-to-understand way, along with 5 quizzes. Einstein's reasoning based on the elevator thought experiment goes something like this. If a windowless cabin is accelerated in zero-gravity space, an observer inside it will be pushed against the floor. This person cannot determine whether this change is due to accelerated motion or gravity. Therefore, the two can be considered to have the same physical meaning. Accelerated motion bends light, lengthening its path. Since the speed of light is constant, this change means that time slows down. The same change should also occur due to gravity. Einstein deduced that gravity must therefore slow down the passage of time and distort space. Einstein imposed 4 restrictions on this reasoning. These make his reasoning ultra-low level. I'll explain them in detail. Limitation 1. In the real universe, light comes from all directions, but Einstein limited it to light perpendicular to the direction of travel of the cabin and ignored all light from other angles. For example, on Earth, the light from the sun is overwhelmingly strong, but light from other celestial bodies also comes. It is possible to create a pitch-black room, but there is no visible light. And light comes from all directions inside it. Radio waves penetrate the walls, and the walls themselves emit infrared rays. This cannot be prevented unless the temperature of the walls is made absolute zero, which is impossible. The assumption that only a single ray of light reaches the cabin in Einstein's thought experiment is too unnatural. The claim that this unnatural assumption reveals the truth of nature is an inference that should be examined with the utmost caution. Question 1. Why did Einstein and other physicists ignore light reaching the cabin from other angles? It is inconceivable that the general theory of relativity, which cannot be derived without restricting it to extremely unnatural conditions, represents the laws of nature. If general relativity still expresses the laws of nature, it should hold even if the restrictions are removed. When, by whom, and how was this verification carried out? If this verification has not yet been carried out, general relativity is not a theory that expresses the truth of the universe, but a theory that predicts the effects of restrictions. This is an extremely serious problem in cosmology. Of course. It has been confirmed, right? Please answer. When and who confirmed it? If no one has noticed the need for it, it is confirmed that the reasoning abilities of all physicists are too low. Limitation 2. Einstein ignored the diffraction of light. Light that passes through a small hole undergoes a change called diffraction. That is, when a ray of light passes through a hole, it bends and spreads at various angles. Einstein erased all of that, leaving only the path of light as a laser beam, which did not exist at the time. I named this light Einstein's laser beam, and it was a product of his imagination. Question 2. Why do physicists ignore diffraction in the elevator thought experiment? Why do they simplify the path of light so much? Do they ignore it because it is convenient? Or do they not have the ability to think about complex things? Limitation 3. Einstein assumed that the cabin had no windows, and that an observer inside it could not observe what was happening outside. This meant that the observer would be unable to distinguish between gravity and the force of inertia due to accelerated motion. Einstein claimed that this showed the truth of the universe. Question 3. If the observer's observations are restricted, gravity and inertia become indistinguishable. It is an absurd inference to say that this state is a manifestation of the truth of the universe. It is possible to make it impossible to distinguish between dolphins and sharks by restricting observation. However, no one would accept the claim that this is a truth of nature. Why are Einstein's limitations acceptable? Isn't it a correct inference to think that the truth becomes apparent by removing the restrictions on observation? Restriction 4. Even without windows, an observer in the cabin can observe gravity. Because the direction in which gravity pulls an object is not parallel. If someone in the cabin moves around and precisely measures the direction in which an object is pulled at multiple positions, it is possible to determine whether the force is due to gravity and to calculate the distance to the source of gravity. To avoid this, Einstein used the rhetoric that, locally, accelerated motion and gravitational acceleration are equivalent. In other words, he prohibited observers from observing at multiple positions. This restriction is an injustice that cannot be tolerated. There may be cases where the laws of the universe can only be observed under certain conditions. However, the condition if observation is restricted is never accepted in scientific theory. This is because it is a condition for magic to work. The magician restricts observation of the internal structure of the hat and makes a dove appear from it. The scene looks as if a dove has appeared out of nothing. Of course, it is an illusion. Surprisingly, general relativity was magic. Locally, I despair at the poor reasoning abilities of physicists who cannot see the deeper meaning of this expression. They are good at calculations, but are easily fooled by tricks. Question 4. Gravity and the inertial force caused by accelerated motion can be distinguished. We should think of this as the truth of the universe. Why don't physicists think so? Is it the way to approach the truth of the universe by severely restricting it even though it is possible to distinguish? The truth of the universe should become clearer by removing as many restrictions as possible, collecting as much information as possible, and making comprehensive inferences. Why did no one criticize Einstein for doing the opposite? The conclusions reached by thought experiments that assume many restrictions like this do not represent the truth of the universe, but the effect of restricting the conditions. The true truth of the universe is something that holds unconditionally. For example, the law of conservation of energy should hold unconditionally. Even if there are exceptions, they will be local or temporary. These are the laws that truly govern the universe. The true laws of the universe hold unconditionally. As long as we exist in this universe, it is impossible to escape the laws that govern the universe, so of course this is the case. Laws that do not hold unless conditions are attached are magic. Don't be fooled by them. So why are there so few experts who point out the flaws in relativity? Because Einstein's reasoning skills are low, but other experts' skills are even lower. Now I'll free you from Einstein's spell. Let's start by considering the truth of light diffraction. The elevator cabin I use in my thought experiment is hemispherical. This is because light that passes through a hole travels radially, which is more convenient. By adjusting the position of the hole appropriately, we can make all the light rays reach the hemispherical wall at the same time. The light that enters the cabin through the hole spreads radially. If we think of light as a beam, it bends and spreads at various angles. It's impossible to draw all of this, so here I've simplified it to 3 short beams. The paths of these beams are observed inside the cabin like this. If we draw it in a little more detail, it would look like this. The light that has taken a shorter path is compressed and blue shifted, and the light that has taken a longer path is red shifted. So the walls of the hemisphere will be illuminated in rainbow colors. But this requires an incredible acceleration. The short ray of light that enters the cabin branches into countless rays, all of which reach the hemisphere wall at the same time. Because the lengths of their paths vary, the speeds of the light rays also vary. If you remove restriction 1 and increase the angle of incidence of light to 3, it looks like this. The 3 beams enter the cabin at the same time and reach the hemispherical wall at the same time. The fact that the lengths of their paths are different indicates that the speed of light varies depending on the angle. It was confirmed that the speed of light changes inside the accelerating cabin. If there is only one light beam, as in Einstein's thought experiment, it is impossible to determine whether the speed of light or the progress of time changes. However, he used his own principle of the constancy of the speed of light and determined that it is the progress of time that changes. This was his own overreach. Other physicists should have increased the number of light beams to verify whether his reasoning was correct, but no one did. They were amazed at Einstein's imagination and prostrated themselves. With imaginations much weaker than Einstein's, that was all they could do. It is correct to assume that it is the speed of light, not the progress of time, that changes with accelerated motion. The knowledge gained from the elevator thought experiment cannot be used to derive the hypothesis that gravity slows down the progress of time. Question 5. If you claim that the speed of light is constant, explain why the lengths of the paths of these rays are different. The only way to defend the theory of relativity is to insist that the 3 light rays do not arrive at the hemispherical wall at the same time. There is a way to eliminate this excuse. Prepare many devices that record the time when they detect light. Gather all the devices in one place and synchronize their built-in clocks. Then move them slowly and place them on the hemispherical wall. If you examine the records of the time when the light arrived, you will be able to prove that they were simultaneous. Correct reasoning reveals the universal truth as follows: it is the speed of light that is relative, not the progress of time. There is no basis for assuming that time is relative. If you have a problem, please answer these 5 questions first. If you cannot answer these, I suggest you remain silent. However, silence is also a big problem. Researchers of cosmology wholeheartedly believe in magic and are studying it with great amounts of public money. This cannot be overlooked.